how long have you been creating YouTube videos?
So I started my first YouTube video my freshman year in high school. It was May. So I was just about wrapping up there, and I finished my first successful stop motion project. I started a little bit before my freshman year, but I'd say my first success was in May of 2010. It would have to be.
Okay, so that was your first stop motion.
Correct.
And is that what you started, your initial start of film was stop motion?
Yeah, so I sent you that video. It was the first Lego stop motion video. That was the first one I ever made. I forget when the date was exactly, but I know it was around the same year. It was definitely my freshman year. So I made a short, minute and a half, 2-minute video. And it was really cool, and I liked it, and Legos were easy to use. And then I decided to switch to action figures and make a more exotic film and add more detail and more creativity. And that kind of took off to the one that I finalized in May of 2010.
So on to the next question. How would you describe your content?
The content?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's stop motion.
So yeah, the content of my film is primarily, it started off with just Spider-Man versus whatever the bad guy is. So good versus evil, hero versus villain. Very simple. I kind of went with the dynamics of saying what I can do with the figures, what were my limiting factors, how far could I take this and be creative, and seeing how if I could see potentially between these two superheroes, supervillains. So it was nice because I was able to be creative in a sense, instead of watching a film, being oh, that's super cool, but I actually had a say in what would happen over the course of the short film. Entertainment, but as you know, I switched to live action films, which I was a part of, my neighbors, a few friends of mine, things like that. And that just kind of turned out to be action adventure, a little bit more violent too. I started getting into, airsoft and things like that. So definitely had a different focus. And personally, I actually wasn't too fond of the weaponry. My neighbors were very big on airsoft and stuff, and I kind of got influenced by that. But I really liked to film. So I'm well, we can compromise. I can make you a film, and you can have as many guns and whatever as you want in it. And then I started liking it too. So,
how would you describe your personality?
Ooh. People tell me that I'm very energetic, enthusiastic, outgoing, and charismatic. I definitely like, working with people and getting teams together, getting people together to do stuff. It's not fun doing things by yourself, which is actually one of the things I struggled with in filmmaking, is I was a lot of the times by myself, and I didn't really have a good, someone else who was passionate or interested in film or doing something or other. So sometimes I'm hey, I'd have to get my sibling, can you hold this for me for a second real quick while I take this picture? Hey Dad, I'm trying to do this thing, can you just stand here and hold this? And then tripods became my new friends. But, going back to I guess how people describe me, I think it's one of the reasons I'm an RA too, is because I like getting to know people. I like watching people grow. I like being a mentor. I like helping. It's fun to be around people with different ideas and different thoughts and beliefs. And for me, it's the curiosity that fuels my personality and things that I do.
What are your goals as a creator? What are your reasons and motivations for creating content?
I was in high school, right? So I was a very, very big, Spider-Man fan. I literally thought I could be Spider-Man, and I still kind of do this day, to be honest. So it was so I have to give a little spiel about Spider-Man before I can answer that question. So, in my opinion, Spider-Man is probably the most relatable superhero in all superheroes ever. Reason being, he comes from lower class in general. He is a high school kid. He has to deal with bullies, has to get good grades. He's a smart kid, which I relate to, and he really likes math and science, which I also relate to. And he's not only has to deal with financial problems and losing his parents and his uncle, who was his father figure, but he had to overcome those struggles. And from getting through tough times, he had to conceal his identity to protect the ones that he loved. So he's very conscious of what his impact is on his personal life and the impact in his community. And he's just a very fun, charismatic guy who's quick with the jokes, and is just, I guess, a fun guy to be around, I guess, but you know, you gotta really know him. So what I'm saying is all other superheroes in general, Iron Man, Batman, you know, they all come from wealth. They all come from status already, and they were just kind of given it to them. And Spider-Man had to work his way up. He's kind of the underdog, right? And I really resonated with that. So I was bullied in school, like, you know, people were picking on saying I can't do things, and I really thought that I could. And I kind of, I don't want to say I proved them wrong, but I felt more inclined to say, hey, like, I really can do this. So that's what, like, attracted me to Spider-Man in the first place. I loved the movies. Tobey Maguire's, Sam Raimi's films were fantastic, and I watched like the action scenes over and over and over again, and I'm like, I kind of want to make my own and see what I would have done differently. So I started doing just that, and I actually replicated the first film I made, the train scene, and added my own choreography to that fight scene based on my resources. And from there, I'm like, well, I don't have to wait for another movie to make a, you know, hero versus villain film. I can just do it myself. So then I started doing that. And I taught myself how to do this. I was a self-learner, self-starter, self-motivated, all that. I watched one stop-motion film on YouTube, and I'm like, I can do that with my Spider-Man action figures. And then I started learning how to make stop-motion with my Windows PC. I used Windows Movie Maker. I started off with that, and then started creating from there. And then, so my goals now have shifted ever since I started the program, or I started my YouTube channel. So original goal was to make as many stop motion films as being creative as I possibly could. That's how it was when I first started filming. Then I'm like, well, now let's see. I have, you know, being more sociable, more friends and things. Like, let's see if they want to get into a film. And I talked about my friends really like airsoft and stuff. So I made a film based on their interests, and I just wanted to film something. So we were both, you know, happy. So I started filming live action films, and the goal was then, so goal 2 was, you know, just make films, be creative, you know, share ideas and see what we come up with and have a good time. Really was just to have fun. And that's exactly what we did. We had fun. And then when I came to college, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Stop motion takes a lot of time, months, weeks, you know, lots of weekends, lots of hours, not only filming, but editing as well, getting the music, sound effects, and, you know, avoiding copyright, things like that. So then when I came to college, I was at one point thinking about bringing my toys, but I didn't think it'd be a, you know, good way to start off getting made fun of your first year. So starting my senior year in high school, I was preparing for the AP Calculus exam. And I started making educational tutorials on how to do single variable calculus. So I started using that as a tool to help my fellow peers study for the AP exam in the late spring. So I decided to continue that in college. So my shift went from stop motion, live action films, and now educational tutorials. So every class in general that I've taken here, I have made YouTube videos on the essentials of the class or an example overview and things like that. So I started off with multivariable calculus, economics, macro, statistics, and what else have I done? Engineering courses, physics. So it's kind of all been building and building, vector calculus. And I used to, at some point, depending on the class, would like redo a lecture, an hour and a half lecture in about 10 minutes. So I could teach it to someone else. Because to me, if you're learning something, you have to be able to teach it to someone to show that you're actually learning it. So for not only was I helping my community and my peers in the class and anyone in general searching for how to, you know, find the gradient and saddle points for like, you know, three-dimensional, you know, graph, three-dimensional curves. I was also studying in that process. So it was very, you know, really cool thing that not only was I helping others, but I was also helping myself. So I did have to let go some of my passions to focus on, you know, the career that I decided to do, which is mechanical engineering. But I am still, you know, really excited about film in general. So even though it's recording on a screen, I still feel like I can have fun with it. Yeah, the goals kind of changed over time.
Is there anything in your background that helped prepare you to become a creator? Media training or performance experience?
You know, I kind of said this already, but I was kind of like a self-starter for this. None, I can't, no. Yeah, none of my family has done anything related to film. I started filmmaking out of my own, interest. I saw films. I watched what people were putting on YouTube. I guess that was an inspiration too. Like, other people besides very famous Hollywood stars are making films. Like, usually it's like, oh, you got to be like trained, and then when you're there, then you can make something great. But really, that's not true. You can start at any age. And that kind of like debunked that myth where really like you can create something and you don't need to have, because you can create something out of fun, not out of experience, is what I'm trying to say. Like, a lot of famous filmmakers didn't have training, and they actually critique film studies and film schools when they say, hey, like, I put this amount of hours or in this amount of film projects. But really, it's like, why did you, like, do that? Why did, like, just go with your gut, go with the flow, have fun, experiment. Toying with things actually led to a lot of crazy inventions. It led to, from the piano to the typewriter, the harpsichord, and all these crazy instruments. Like, there was a bone discovered, like a fossil, where like an elephant, or let's say a mammoth died. It was during like, caveman era. And that caveman, carved out holes in this bone and like blew on it and made sounds, and it made their first flute. Like, they were just having fun. Like, no one taught them music. Like, we as humans have an innate drive to be curious, to have fun too, not only to be, intellectual. We have a deep desire to explore, have fun, and learn new things. And I think that's inherent in all of us. It's just what inspires us to get those creative juices flowing. And for me, it was Spider-Man films, YouTube, like having a wide platform for that. And not only that, I had the resources to do it. I had a camera. I had a digital camera, was the first thing I started off with. I had to take, hold 3 seconds, flash one picture. Hold 3 seconds, flash one picture. And then I eventually got a cell phone, and that could take pictures a lot more effectively. So my technology also aided me in producing better quality films. But still, the drive was there regardless of the technology. But it was nice having the resource as an aid to fuel that desire.
So what do you enjoy most about being a content creator?
The freedom. Definitely the freedom. You are your own boss. How cool is that? Like, you get to no, but to a certain extent though, you have an idea, but you also want to share that with someone to see if it's actually a good one, or if they had some input or feedback on that. Like, hey, maybe I'd tweak this, or oh, I don't know about that. It's like, oh, I have this. It's nice that when you look at a place, like when I did my latest film was done in Italy when I was studying abroad, and I looked at this where I was, and I'm like, I could make a film here. Oh man, I could see so many things happening right now. I'm really excited. So my juices were flowing, and I ran it off of my friend who I was living with, who offered to have me stay at his house, and we ended up making a really awesome film there. It was probably my favorite one to date. Agent 17, pull the trigger. Anyway. The most enthusiasm I get out of it, regardless of the number of views that I've received, is the making of the film. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, but it's fun, it's exciting, it's memorable. I will never forget those times I spent with my friends in all those films, because not only are they published on on YouTube, and when I watched that, I'm like, I remember what the process was going through that. I remember the laughs we had. I remember how intimate our relationship was between my peers. So it really was the process, the thinking, the thinking of a new angle, a way to approach things. It's fun, and I enjoy filming because it's fun.
How large is your following or audience, and is having a large fan base important to you?
To answer that question simply, I currently have over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and my top 3 videos have 6.6 million views is for one video, another video is 3.5 million views, and another video is 3 million. Now, a lot of people, when they first see that, like, oh my gosh, you're YouTube famous. My answer is no, I just made films that I liked doing, and I don't, it's a timing thing. So the question was like, what about fans again?
Is having a large fan base important?
To me, it's not, but it's nice knowing that other people appreciate the work. I would have made these films. I would have made more films regardless of whether people liked them or not. Whether the internet trolls like got the best of me, I wouldn't have let that happen. I would have done it anyway. So regardless of the number of views, yes, I will admit that it was a motivator to keep making more films and to respond to comments and be like an active YouTuber in terms of like answering people's questions and making a film. But I wasn't so like, oh my gosh, I need to turn out a film like quickly. It's like, well, no, I actually have like school to focus on. I have other things to do that I feel will progress, my, career as a citizen. So the fan base is not important. It's cool. It's awesome. And I love to like give what I can make and I just hope that they enjoy what my creations are and what the films that I produce. So that's my answer, I guess.
And then moving on to the next question, what metrics do you use to measure your audience?
So YouTube kind of does it for me.
Which of those like measurements do you pay the most attention to and why?
So I used to just start paying attention to the number of viewers. YouTube keeps a track of the number of views. Then I started noticing subscribers because my friends were like, oh my gosh, you have over 1,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh, this is like growing up. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so I guess there's, get an email every time I make a video or something. So I started, to me, it's still views. And like returners, like how many people like come back. I've also recently got a promotion this past week. My audience has gone international. It's no longer just domestic. I got some sort of promotion as a result. So I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I do get residual income based on my YouTube videos. My partnership started my sophomore year in high school. My first successful film, I was like, oh my gosh, 400 views. And then it was like, oh my gosh, 1,000 views. Oh my gosh, 10,000 views. Oh my gosh, 100,000 views. And then 400,000 views, almost 500,000 views. I'm like, I should probably say yes to this partnership because I was offered it, I forget, it was in like maybe 10,000-ish to 100,000-ish. But my parents were a little concerned about like, privacy and account information on like a fairly new at the time way of making money. So I didn't say yes to the partnership until I hit 400,000 views on one video. And that's when I was offered it. So it's a partnership. It's a YouTube partnership working with Google AdSense. I get paid based on the ads that are placed on it.
Do you consider your followers, so like probably the people that are subscribed to your YouTube channel, your fans?
I say I am a fan with them. So I am a member of the fan club. We're all fans of Spider-Man, and we are part of the same group. I am an aficionado of Spider-Man, and so are they. I'm assuming if there that many people watch that, and then. As I've aged, so has my audience. So I think depending on like what educational opportunities my audience has access to, I feel that I'm also helping a few along with mathematics and other things. So like it's kind of like a growing area. So I relate with some audiences, but definitely the Spider-Man thing is where it's at. And I don't know if this answers a question in the future, but I think part of the reason my filming became successful was because of timing. But I'll allude to that later because we have a lot of questions to go through.
Do you have a sense of who your followers or fans are and why they follow you? So I guess it's pretty much what you just said, but if you want to add it.
So yeah, I'll add, so YouTube also reveals where my audience comes from, the demographic, the gender as well. Well, not gender, but the sex. So like male, female viewers, and like which countries or which percentages are mostly viewed from. Got pretty surprising. I mentioned earlier that I got that promotion, so I guess I'm going international now. But Spider-Man did that first. So I'm just following.
So how do you connect with your fans, especially the international ones?
Well, we all share a common connection. Fan of Spider-Man, right? How do I connect with the international ones? That I think, Spider-Man's an international icon, and I think the answer is the same that we're all fans of Spider-Man for most of my viewers, because I think that's primarily where most of my views comes from, is from the stop motion films, and now my demographic is changing.
What strategies do you use, if any, to increase the size of your audience? Like you were talking about the educational ones, like if they view it longer.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, now I think YouTube pays you based on, so I get monthly check from them. What was the question? Like, how do I get them to, okay. So I was actually a very private person when it came to this channel. I didn't want people to know because, like I said, I was kind of like made fun of because of it. Because like, oh, this kid's just playing with toys, you dork. Like, and then they're awed in the success. That how many people actually watch this, and when other people try to replicate my work or try to make a video saying like, oh, I'm going to make a video that's going to get millions of views, and it just didn't happen. But like I said, I credit most of that not because of my, maybe it's part of like how well the film was, but I honestly think it's part of it was timing. I'll get into that later. But how do I keep the audiences engaged? I was very private about it. I wouldn't share it. I didn't actually, in fact, share that I had a YouTube channel with, like socially on Facebook or anything until like 2 years ago, randomly. Not even that. Maybe it was a year ago. Because the only advertisement I made for like publicly on my Facebook, my personal Facebook, was for my latest film in Italy because I was studying abroad and I was really excited about this film. I did not, however, share my stop motion aspect. So my way of sharing my channel has been very minimum. It's all been YouTube's kind of does, whatever it is they do behind the doors, behind the scenes. It's just been kind of filtered based on what kind of people are looking up on YouTube, Spider-Man related stuff, and then they see my video might pop along. And that's just how YouTube works. It has nothing that I do personally. But I just do what I keep doing, and then the fan chooses to come or leave. But yeah, I didn't start publicizing. I was very private about it until recently.
So do you feel your family and peers are supportive of your desire to be a content creator?
Yes and no. My father and mother encouraged like my films. They just get really excited whenever I'd make something. So it was nice to have that support. Whenever I'd ask for my sister, for example, to help me out with something, she generally wasn't too supportive on that. Like, hey, I'm busy, I'm doing something else, so which is understandable. So she wasn't really big on that. Like I said earlier, my peers were originally like mocking my work, not like I was something I was really excited about, and it was kind of like disheartening. So maybe that was part of the reason why I didn't look for other people to like help me. Although it was my biggest downfall, I'd have to say, or biggest regret, was not getting more people involved and not expanding on that and getting people together and things. But then as for some reason, suddenly when you're quote unquote successful, that changes their picture. So then I got support and was then those same people who like, was like, oh, like this is whatever. And then when they saw how successful I was doing, then they wanted to make films.
Do you consider yourself internet famous? If not, would you like to be internet famous?
I do not consider myself internet famous. I don't want to become internet famous because to a certain extent I'm a pretty private person. I don't like publicity too much because like I want to live my life normally in terms of not being like flounged by media, like media pop stars, and like I don't want that life. I know that, but I know I don't. This is different, so I don't want like my family and other people around me to also be watched like that. To me, that's just like a hindrance on like a life where I don't know. I just don't want that. My personal preference. Some people consider me an internet icon. I wouldn't say an icon, but like, wow, you're successful in YouTube. That's impressive, right? You're a YouTube star. And in fact, my friends get mad at me now. Like all the new peers I meet, like my fellow coworkers, some of my friends are like, "You never told me you had a YouTube channel. Well, why didn't you tell me?" Like, "Oh, you didn't like." That's so cool. That's the coolest thing. Next time you meet someone, you gotta say, "Hey, I have a YouTube channel. I'm like making like this many views or whatever." And I'm like, I don't really divulge that on an open-based conversation. If someone like Spider-Man, I might bring it up. Someone is struggling with multivariable calculus. Hey, I got some videos. Why don't you check those out? They might help you. So I share the knowledge when I see the knowledge is and has the opportunity to be shared. I don't necessarily publicize it, which is why I don't want to be an icon, because I don't like that publicity. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy where I'd like to grow in the field, in filmmaking. I really do, and sometimes I wish I could have just like stuck with it. But right now, as undergraduate in engineering and as a residential advisor for student housing, as just a college kid, I gotta finish my steps towards getting a degree and still use this passion in the future. We'll just see how well it shapes.
Do you think there's any difference between internet fame and fame derived from more traditional platforms like film and TV?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference there. Internet fame versus film fame, like Hollywood fame or political fame, it's definitely different. There are a lot of famous YouTubers out there. Freddie W. There's the guy who I don't know. There's a lot of famous YouTubers out there, but like the common individual might not necessarily know that. Typically, the younger generation knows about these famous YouTubers. And even I myself couldn't name too many off the top of my head, but I know definitely their faces and their sound. I know of them. So the older audiences, like the generations that have gone before us, may not know these YouTubers as well as they might know Tom Cruise or even Justin Bieber. Even the older generations know that name versus Freddie W. Right? Freddie W., I look up to him a lot. He's a very awesome filmmaker, YouTuber, started his own stuff. He's definitely an icon for me, and I'd love to have worked with him. He works in LA, and he does some really cool films. There's something a little crazy sometimes, but I definitely I see the creativity, and it's very inspiring, and I've definitely gained some inspiration from him. There's a difference between that kind of famous and television and other kinds of fame than it is on YouTube. They're like famous YouTube reviewers, famous YouTube. Yeah, it's different.
In your view, how would a content creator go about achieving internet fame if they wanted it? Talent, luck, persistent social connections, ?
Okay. So last year, my girlfriend is a double major in wildlife conservation biology and theater. And she invited me to a theater class in which an actor on Broadway who was into the woods came and spoke on his theory of acting and theory of success in the performance field. And I came a little late because I was coming from class, and he said, what surprised me most was that talent was ranked number 5 in terms of success. And on the top of his list was luck and timing. When you say the other half, wait. What's that song by Bublé? The other half's timing and the other half's luck. Wherever you are, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, I think so. That song came to mind. Anyway, so wanting it is good, but don't get discouraged if you aren't getting the results that you had hoped. The reason I personally think I became quote unquote successful in what I have done is because of timing. When I started making the films, Spider-Man 3 in 2000, I was inspired by Sam Raimi's films in 2007 and prior, 2004 and all that. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. But The Amazing Spider-Man was coming out, the new reboot. So I started making a ton of films in between the third movie's release till then, which was much later. So when everyone was talking about Spider-Man again, people started looking him up more and watching, younger audiences were more attracted to the views and the videos. So then when that film took off, I still kept making more because I was doing it anyway. And then that audience grew. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and I made a trailer for that film in stop-motion version and my own take on what I thought the film was going to look like and how the fight scenes were going to be. So that helped as well. So the thing is, if to those of you who are interested in making films on YouTube, similar to what I'm doing, whether it's stop motion, live action films, review videos, just talk, political stuff, science-based things, anything really. YouTube's a great platform to do that. And YouTube's not paying me to say that, although they are paying me, but not to say that. Because it is so well known. People look stuff up like for getting help and things. So my advice to you would be this: do it because you want to do it, not because you feel like you should get fame for it or because you want to get paid for it. The perks and the after effects will come into play naturally. And we really don't have any. You can advertise. You really don't have much control over it. So you can advertise. You can put some effort into it, but really, that's not enough. Like one person trying to get a bunch of a large demographic population to watch this is a hard task, and it's not a task that you need to put energy into. Put energy into the film. Put energy into something that you enjoy doing, and share that with your friends and your peers, and that will in turn be doing the work for you.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. This was a lot of fun.
Good.